This ACT video, we're going to take a look at evaluating formulas and expressions. So before we get started on our first example, we want to take a look at a long list of formulas that you may see on the ACT. I've got these broken down into some formulas from geometry up here at the top, and then a couple other random formulas you might see. On the left-hand side, you've got your common area formulas for triangle, square, rectangle, parallelogram, trapezoid, and circle. You should have seen those before in geometry and probably well before then. And on the right-hand side, we've got volume of a cube, prism, rectangular prism, and volume of a sphere. And also as a reminder, your formula for circumference of a circle, and of course circumference is the distance around the circle, so it's much like perimeter. So we'll kind of make a connection there between those. And the other two formulas we'll get to in just a minute. But the first thing we want to look at, I'm not going to talk about each formula in great detail, but the key, I think, to my personal opinion, the key to success on using formulas in word problems is knowing your units. So when we talk about area, area is measured in square units. Okay, just going to abbreviate that real quick. And by square units, I mean like inches squared, feet squared, meters squared, centimeters squared. Area is two-dimensional, much like so when you're buying carpet or any type of flooring for a house. Volume is in cubic units. You're filling something up when you talk about volume. So when we talk about volume, we're talking about cubic inches or cubic centimeters or cubic yards. Okay. Circumference, those units are just linear units, just like with perimeter. So it might just be inches, miles, feet. Okay, just linear units. So that's what I'm going to focus on, and on our two examples for this video are the units. And lastly, we've got two other formulas. Our interest formula is a common one. This is for simple interest. Interest is equal to principal, that's the P, times rate times time. And over here, the distance formula. Distance is equal to rate times time. So the R in both of them stand for rate, and the T stands for time. All right, so time is obviously measured in seconds or minutes, hours, months. And the rate, when we talk about distance, we're talking about the speed. And over here on interest, we're going to talk about that rate in our first example. All right, so looking at our first example, at an annual rate of 11%, what is the simple interest earned in 24 months on an account that has a principal of $7,500? So we're talking about simple interest, and we're going to grab our formula. Interest is equal to principal times rate times time. Anytime I'm working with a formula, I like to list all my variables in the formula on the right-hand side. And then using my units in the problem, I use those units to help me figure out, okay, what does that number belong to? Is it the principal? Is it the rate? Is it the time? And we don't have to go in order either. To me, time is the easiest one to pick out. Here it is. We are looking for the interest earned in 24 months. Months is time. So let's go ahead and fill that in. All right, and then I think it's kind of obvious down here, the last part of this sentence, the principal of $7,500. Principal is the amount you start with, because when we're earning interest, we're earning money on this money that we've put in savings. So our principal here is $7,500. Okay. Or we may not be in a savings account, we might have a loan, and we have to pay to borrow that money. So the amount we borrow could be the principal, and we pay interest on that loan. So we don't just pay the loan back, we pay a little bit more because it costs money to borrow money. All right, so lastly, up here at the top of the sentence, it says an annual rate of 11%. All right, so that's going to be our rate, 11%, but don't get too carried away just yet, because when we plug in percents into a formula, we have to change them to a decimal. And we reviewed that in an earlier video, so we're going to take our decimal, move it 2 places to the left. 11% is 0.11. And we're going to put a big question mark for interest because that's what we're looking for. So right there it says, what is the simple interest? So we just plug in interest equals principal 7,500 times the rate 0.11 and the time of 24 months. And because you're working on your ACT, you've got your calculator, so you can get through this number crunching rather quickly. Time is of the essence. And our interest is 19,800. Okay. So use those units to help you figure out which piece in the formula that number belongs to. Let's take a look at one more example. This one's from geometry. What is the volume of a sphere with the same radius as a circle with a diameter of 30 millimeters? So we're looking for volume of a sphere. We need to go grab our volume formula, which is 4/3 pi r cubed. We only have 2 variables in this formula, v for volume and r for radius. And right there at the get-go of the problem, it's got the question, what is the volume? So right there we can go ahead and put our question mark for v, and we should have a number value for r. Now, at first glance, you might think it's the 30 over there, but let's make sure we read it. What's the volume of a sphere that has the same radius as a circle with a diameter of 30 millimeters? Well, we need the radius, and the radius is half of the diameter, so half of 30 gives us 15 millimeters. And we're going to plug that in. Volume is equal to 4/3 pi times 15 cubed. Order of operations rules everything. No matter what you're doing, you always have to follow your order of operations. So next step, we will actually cube the 15. 15 to the third gives us 3,375. Definitely want your calculator handy for that. And we can also go ahead and cross simplify right here, because 3 goes into 3,375 1,125 times. And I'm going to leave this answer in terms of pi, which means I'm not going to round it. I'm not going to get a decimal. We'll just keep it exact. So all I'm going to do is multiply 4 times 1,125, leaving me with 4,500 pi millimeters cubed. And so this is an exact answer because we didn't use the pi key on our calculator. If they asked you to round it, I would recommend using the pi key as opposed to just 3.14. It's going to be a little bit more precise. So takeaway here, just make sure you know your units. Know what volume is, know what area is, circumference and perimeter. Make sure you understand what those things are measured in, and that'll help you pick out the pieces for your formulas.